to the City of Farmers Branch City Council meeting for Tuesday, March 19th. Please join Councilman Baird in our invocation and pledges.
Please rise. Let's pray. God, we thank you for this time tonight, and we thank you for the freedom to gather. We ask that you would give each of us wisdom and that you would guide the decisions we make. We're thankful for our city again and all the residents and all the city employees who do such a great job for us. We pray all this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
So next up are ceremonial items, and first item is E1, which is presentation of a 15-year service award to Lieutenant Jason Roddy of the Farmers Branch Police Department. So Lieutenant Jason Roddy began his career with Farmers Branch Police Department in 2009 and immediately distinguished himself as an exemplary officer. He steadily moved up the ranks, being promoted to corporal in 2016, sergeant in 2018, and lieutenant in 2021. Lieutenant Roddy holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Lindenwood University and a Master Peace Officer certification from the state of Texas. In addition to being the third watch commanding officer, he is the supervisor of the accident investigation team. They're charged with the difficult but essential task of reconstructing those vehicle accidents that result in serious bodily injury or death. Lieutenant Roddy has received 4 commendations during his time here and was named the 2017 Supervisor of the Year. Please join me in congratulating and thanking Lieutenant Roddy for his 15 years of dedicated service to our citizens.
Just real quickly, our department is lucky to have Lieutenant Roddy as our present and our future. Any law enforcement agency in the nation would love to have an officer of this composure and character. So, Jason, thank you for 15 years.
So we have a couple of the awards for you. That was Assistant Chief Siegel, who is Lieutenant Roddy's direct report over the patrol division. I'm Kevin McCoy, the Chief of Police, and I'll echo what Chief Siegel said, that Lieutenant Roddy is one of the best that we have in the department, and his shift sets the example of what all the other shifts should be, and they do amazing work on a daily basis. And although he would never take credit for it, it's a reflection of the leadership. So thank you for what you do for us every day, sir, what you do for our citizens. We do have some awards for you, the mayor's got. And the better award, the department award, is super fancy.
Well, here.
Jay did it. So this is the Department 15-Year Recognition Award, which is an engraved knife that has the department's patch on it, and it has your name, Lieutenant Roddy, and your badge number. So that's the one that you get to take and put on display. So congratulations, sir. I will close it so you and I don't cut ourselves. In front. In front.
Okay, one more. Okay, thank you. Next up is E2, presentation of Employee of the Month Award to Kevin McCarthy, Construction Inspector for the Public Works Department for the month of February.
Apologies for his inability to be here, so I'll speak on his behalf. So, I am not Kevin McCarthy. I am Shane Davis. Unfortunately, Kevin, for personal reasons, he was unable to be here tonight, so poor scheduling on our part. But just some few good words about Kevin. He's been here longer than I have. He's been here 24 years. Quiet, diligent employee. He's been started off in parks, steadily progressed through various roles within utilities, so the Water Utilities Division, starting off the maintenance worker, crew leader, and currently serves as utilities construction inspector. So when you see projects going on around the city, he's one of the folks out there making sure everything's installed correctly. His dedication to his work and his eagerness to assist others sets a commendable example for his colleagues. Kevin's exceptional mechanical skills allow him to fabricate almost anything we need when we call upon him. What truly distinguishes him is an unwavering determination to overcome any challenge, and the phrase, "it can't be done," doesn't come out of his mouth. Kevin's devoted a significant portion of his life to serving the city, often spending more time here with the work colleagues, after hours with utilities and water breaks, and often with his family. So given his outstanding contributions, it's clear he deserves this award, and I'm just truly sorry he's not unable to accept it from y'all tonight, but thank you very much for recognizing him and honoring him.
Thank you, Shane. Would you like to leave it up here?
I can take it to him and get it to him, so.
Really nice award here. So, very good. Next up is E3, which Councilwoman Roman will be presenting.
So next is we have a presentation on the Texas Recreation and Parks Society, or TRAPS, State 2023 Recreation Facility Design Excellence Award to the Farmers Branch Community Recreation Center. The Texas Recreation and Parks Society annually recognizes outstanding achievements in the parks and recreation industry at their state conference. This year, Farmers Branch Community Recreation Center has earned well-deserved acclaim for its exceptional contributions to the field by winning the TRAPS State 2023 Recreation Facility Design Excellence Award. Inaugurated in 2004, the Recreation Center has long remained a cornerstone of the Farmers Branch community. To meet our community's evolving needs, the Recreation Center underwent a comprehensive first-floor renovation in 2020. The renovation's first phase focused on converting an underutilized basketball gym into a state-of-the-art fitness zone. Our team creatively repurposed areas, expanded childcare, and transformed a teen room, allowing members heightened access to our fitness amenities and rental spaces. Notably, this added 11,100 square feet of fitness space without physical expansion. The first phase of the renovation earned its own regional TRAPS Facility Design of Excellence Award in 2021, and the second phase of the renovation focused on updating the second floor to measure up to the newly created atmosphere of the Recreation Center's first floor. Because of the Recreation Center team's vision, creativity, and unique approach to developing solutions, both phases of the renovation maximized space and efficiency. The result is a successful revitalization of a treasured resource in our community that serves Farmers Branch families. And with me, I've got the team who made it all happen. Let's give them a round of applause. And here is your award. Would you guys like to say something? Jessica, would you like to say something on behalf of your team?
I'm okay, thank you.
Do you guys want to take a picture?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jessica's too shy. The team does a great job. So thank you. Thank everybody for all the work that you put in to earn that award. Next up is item E4, which is presentation of the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award and Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. So Tammy Zimmerman, our Finance Director, is here. So let me just read a little background on this first. The Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, of the United States and Canada has presented an award of Distinguished Budget Presentation to the City of Farmers Branch for the 2022-23 budget and an award of Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the city's 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. The GFOA programs were instituted to encourage all government units to prepare and publish easily readable and understandable financial documents covering all government funds and financial transactions during the year. The GFOA believes that governments have a special responsibility to provide the public with a fair presentation of their financial affairs. These financial reports go beyond the requirements of generally accepted accounting principles to provide the many users of government financial statements with a wide variety of information useful in evaluating a government's financial condition. Bond rating agencies favorably consider these awards during their credit evaluation process. This is the 26th consecutive year that the City of Farmers Branch has received the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and the 34th consecutive year that it has received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. These awards represent a significant achievement by Farmers Branch and reflect the commitment of the City Council and the City Administration to meet the highest principles of government budgeting, accounting, and financial reporting.
So we have some heavy plaques that I want to bring up my team members. Again, Tammy Zimmerman, Director of Finance. This is kind of the award seasons, our Oscars for finance. And I want to bring up our team members that are here tonight that were responsible in putting in the effort for these two awards. And first up, Pamela DeHaan, who is our accounting manager. Thank you. Significant amount of time with the city and significant amount of blood, sweat, and tears put into maintaining all of the disbursements and the reconciliation of all of our revenue that we receive. Next up is Perla Tavera, who is our Deputy Director of Finance, Fleet, and Facilities. And she was the leader of all the efforts and reconciling all of our accounting processes and getting out our annual audit report. So some members that aren't here tonight is Suzanne Pritchard, our budget manager. Again, significant amount of years and blood, sweat, and tears and getting out the budget document. And there's a reason why we are celebrating the 26th year for the Distinguished Budget Presentation and the 34th year of their Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. It's the team. And there's some members that aren't here tonight, and I'm going to shout out to them real quickly. Leslie Smith is our senior accountant, Mark Woodward, a treasury manager, Camille Alford, who is our purchasing agent, and Cheyenne Kelly, our grant coordinator, and there's others. But these are heavy awards. We keep filling the buttons and going forward, but that Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, it's an impartial panel that judges and makes sure that we're following all the GFOA's standards on whether we clearly communicate our financial story. And the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award is, again, an impartial panel that judged whether or not we put our highest principles into the budget that serves as our policy document, our financial plan, our operations guide, and our communications device. So a big round of applause to this team. I'm very proud of them.
Mayor, our items of community interest for this council meeting of March 19th, 2023. Lace up your running shoes and grab a basket. Our annual spring adult egg hunt will be this Friday, March 22nd from 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. at the Historical Park. Every egg contains a prize. Bring a flashlight. The $30 admission includes a glass of beer or wine and light refreshments. Pre-registration is required. Call the Historical Park at 972-919-8730. And get ready to go global. Our first ever multicultural event, Gateway to the Globe, will be this Saturday, March 23rd from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., also at the Historical Park. It's designed to promote the traditions and cultures of residents of Farmers Branch. We'll have almost 20 groups performing on the main stage and a kids stage. Learn more at fbspecialevents.com. Why not have coffee with a cop? Join members of the Farmers Branch Police Department for our next Coffee with a Cop on March 23rd, same day, 2024, from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. at PJ's Coffee in Farmers Branch. No agenda, just coffee and conversation. Also keep in mind that Good Friday, March 29th, will be a holiday. Most city facilities, like City Hall, will be closed. The Rec Center and the Aquatic Center will be open, but both will close at 5 p.m. A few appointments are still available with the Easter Bunny. He'll be visiting local homes on Saturday, March 30th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Each household will receive pre-filled eggs, a letter from the Easter Bunny, and a brief outdoor meet and greet. Call the Recreation Center at 972-919-8750. In just a matter of weeks, Farmers Branch will be in the path of totality during the solar eclipse. On Monday, April 8th, residents can get ISO certified solar eclipse glasses free of charge at the Rec Center, Mansky Library, or in our historical park. Also, in honor of the total solar eclipse, submit an original bookmark design with an out-of-this-world theme. Entry forms are available at the library. All entries will be displayed during National Library Week, and a winner in each age group. Good luck. Farmers Branch voters will have 3 municipal propositions to consider on the May ballot, all of which would be funded by municipal bonds. The next town hall on this topic will be 6 p.m. on Tuesday, April 9th at Mansky Library. And the ballot will also include charter amendments and the general election, of course. Find more details on the homepage at farmersbranchtx.gov. And keep in mind the last day to register to vote is April 4th. Early voting begins April 22nd at Mansky Library and the Brookhaven campus. We'd like your input on active transportation, specifically walking, running, or biking here in Farmers Branch. Our sustainability department needs suggestions on how to make it safer and more efficient. We'll host an in-person session at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, April 9th in the Pecan Room at the Rec Center. Your ideas will help develop future projects. The first Denton Drive Live of the new season will be Saturday, April 13th at the Historical Park. The Elton Johns will kick it off at 6:15 p.m., followed by the Beatle Tribute Band, Hard Day's Night. Sign up now to be a volunteer at Fishin' Fun in April. It's an annual fishing tournament for kids at Rawhide Creek behind City Hall. It's free and open to residents and non-residents. And we need plenty of adult volunteers, no angling experience required. Learn more by calling 972-919-8740. And as always, you can sign up for City e-News at farmersbranchtx.gov. Mayor?
Thank you, Jeff. So next up is our report on study session items, and we did have our study session this afternoon, started at 3 o'clock. Talked about a number of things, including possible takeover of maintenance to medians in both the Mercer Crossing and the Oak Brook neighborhoods. There was also discussion about the city replacing some street signs in the Oak Brook neighborhood. And then we received the report on the landfill, the solar project that was going to go in out the landfill. That project has changed and is not happening at this point with the particular vendor, so the city will be going back out for bids on that. We started a discussion on the neighborhood revitalization programs, and we have not finished. So as soon as we finish our regular agenda items in this room this evening, then we will resume discussion on that topic right here, and then also have conversation about informational reports from members that are liaisons to various boards. For more information on study session items, when we're finished with that, you go to farmersbranchtx.gov and view what was discussed earlier. Next up is citizen comment. And I would remind everybody there's a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak, with a reasonable limitation of on speakers on one topic or item of a maximum of 15 minutes per that particular item. Anybody wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. Please refrain from disparaging or inflammatory remarks directed at any member of the board or commission, city council, or city staff. And the first up is Stafford Jackson. Right here. So when you come up, please state your name and address.
Hello, everyone. I'm Talia Stafford Jackson. I live at 1765 Prescott in Mercer Crossing. How's everybody?
Good, thank you.
Good. So I have been a resident for 20 years, and you guys notice I have on red because I wanted to invite everyone formally, not only the city council, everyone in attendance, to join me for a couple of events that are coming up. But about a year and a half ago, I experienced an aortic dissection, which out of the blue, I felt a rip in my chest, and I said, well, I would go to the doctor, but I have a hair appointment. And my husband said, well, I think, not on my watch, right? So I went to the doctor, and they said, well, thank goodness it's not cardiac, but it was. And the CT scan, he said, it's a good thing that you came in today. You have a really good husband, and I knew something was wrong then, right? Mm-hmm. So immediately I was flighted to Baylor and had open heart surgery. So now I'm an ambassador this year for American Heart Association. I live in Farmers Branch. And so I've also made a personal pledge of raising $20,000 towards women's heart research. So I have 2 events in Farmers Branch, and I'm asking if you guys would like to make it a citywide support. Some of you guys have come to my wine tastings before, but right here at Scout and Cellar, which is a local and female-owned business, we are going to host a free wine tasting with art. It's called Wine and Vines, and anything that's purchased will also go to our campaign. And I have these that also sent over that could maybe be sent out through the newsletter. And then Chipotle, we have Doing Good with Chipotle. All you have to do is go through the drive-through and mention red on April 3rd. So the request that I have is that everyone will consider going red, and maybe the city would get behind it and make it an official Go Red Day on March 27th. Any questions?
So the Scout and Cellar is March 27th?
March 27th, 5:30 to 7, Scout and Cellar, which is right by the lake, at their tasting room. And if you don't know about it, it's a brand-new tasting room, so it's nice for everybody to come and support. Completely free.
And Chipotle is on April 3rd?
April 3rd from 4 to 8 o'clock. You can do online with the code and just pick it up, or you can go in and dine and donate. So, and you don't have to fellowship if you don't want. You can just come in and mention Go Red, and 20% will go to the campaign.
Excellent,
All
excellent.
right.
Well, thank you very much for setting that up.
Thank you. I hope to see you all there.
Absolutely. And if you have a couple flyers on each and you want to leave them, that'd be great. Okay. Next up is Candace Adams.
Good evening, everyone. Candace Adams, Pebble Beach, 3521 Pebble Beach Drive. I reviewed the last council meeting online, and I became concerned about the project, the construction project of the multi-home housing unit, et cetera, reappearing and resurfacing. Even though the council voted the project down, I cannot see Mr. Cusack walking away from that large of an investment. So what is next? I'm having some flashbacks from the bond that we had with the library issue. The citizens had it on the ballot, and we voted it down. Then the thing was reissued, repackaged, made some changes here or there to make it look like it was a brand-new deal. And the council, after listening to several citizens, voted it down. Okay, it was a split vote decision, and there were hard feelings around. So what was next? Next was certificate of obligation that were being issued, taxpayers' expense, to quote-unquote upgrade, et cetera, the library. You know, great. I just want, you know, if something's finished and it's done, let's move on to something else. Let's don't have something under the radar, repackaged, and come back and it start over again. Let's let our citizens be able to communicate with each other and not be stressed out and have hard feelings. And I realize that some of the members are saying, you know, times are changing, but not all change is actually considered progress or productive. The people that move here to Farmers Branch enjoy the small community atmosphere. They enjoy the trees, the parks, the community that we all have. And, you know, so let's try to keep it that way. And let's also remember the residents who have lived here for a long time and who have made this city what it is. And I thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Neil Patel.
Thank you, City Mayor and the City Council members. My name is Neil Patel, and I live at 12174 Hess Drive in the Mercer Crossing neighborhood. And my topic is about the maintenance of the medians in the Mercer Parkway area in the Mercer Crossing neighborhood, and really just wanted to reiterate my concern and desire that the city takes over the maintenance of this area for a couple of reasons. One is that I think it's really become a main thoroughfare for traffic as the neighborhood has expanded and more development has been happening in that area. There's industrial parks, there's apartments, about 4 or 5 major apartment complexes in addition to our neighborhood. And because of that, it's really used by more than just the residents of the area. There's an increased traffic, there's development of roads and kind of arteries that go into the 635 area. So I really see this as becoming, having traffic from really all members of the city who use this driveways. So because of that, also too, that because of that, it really increases the maintenance of those areas as it's used more. And the HOA so far has been dutifully paying those fees and maintenance fees, but for how long and how can they sustain doing that as more use of this area happens? And third is that I think, from my understanding and my research, is that most medians in the city are managed by the city themselves. And so to keep that consistency and also be like felt inclusive and part of the community, like other areas that have major traffic, I think that it would be appropriate for the city to take care of the medians as well. So really appreciate that you guys have made that effort to do the research and take this into consideration. Mayor Lynn, Omar, for putting this, making it more visible for the residents so that we can come and express our interests and concerns and kind of hopefully alleviate some of the burden, the fact that we're also paying 2 HOAs. It's both the west and the north, which was new to me. It's just been taxing. So look forward to the results from this study. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jennifer Evans.
Hello, Jennifer Evans, 3047 Randy Lane. I attended the study session earlier, and I wanted to talk about 2 things, actually. The first one was the Mercer North subdivision. I understand that they have a homeowners association, and they're responsible for maintaining those medians and such, but that's not something that was necessarily not known. I think maybe the city needs to get together with the homeowners association and the residents in that area and address the fact that when it transitioned from a commercial to a residential project, that care wasn't taken to address the matter of how the center medians are going to be paid for and maintained. As I was in that study session, I was looking on my phone to see, what the medians looked like, and they have a pretty dense array of relatively new brand new trees that, one snowstorm comes and kills a bunch of those trees. Then if you transition the homeowners association from paying to making it a city responsibility, then the taxpayers are going to have to go in and replace all of those trees that are more densely populated in that median than, other medians around the city. So I think there was discussion brought up about comparing the city standard as to the HOA standard and seeing, what needs to be addressed so that if you transition that payment to the other taxpayers across the city that didn't sign up for that HOA, then they know that they're not going to be paying exorbitant amounts of money to maintain these HOA medians that have a higher quality of standard than, the one along my neighborhood, which is on Austell in Valley View Estates. The second thing I'd also like to discuss was the neighborhood revitalization program. There was some discussion about the deed restrictions possibility in selling the properties. I think one thing you should really look into is a neighborhood stabilization overlay. The city of Dallas had to do that for the city of Joppa, which is a historical freeman's town. And they had a bunch of houses that they ended up tearing down and allowing builders to come in and put up houses, and they were not in alignment with what the neighborhood looked like. And the neighborhood stabilization overlay was a way to combat the setbacks, the height restrictions, the restrictions on the materials and height, or excuse me, the size of the property. So yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is William Glancy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Bill Glancy. I live at 3808 Wooded Creek Drive, and I'll try to get this down to 3 minutes. But I listened to a study session today and concerning the medians, and I thought maybe a little bit of history of the medians might help you a little bit, at least explain why the situation you got now happened and what happened. And back in the late 70s, when we started expanding most of our major thoroughfares in the city, at that time, we just tore out the street, put in 6 lanes, level the median, and throw it out a little grass seed, and no irrigation, nothing. And so we got a lot of pushback from residents. Every time we'd widen a street, we had a fist fight because nobody wanted that kind of a street behind them. And so about the same time, Brookhaven Country Club came to the city and asked if they would be allowed to upgrade the median on Brookhaven Club Drive, and the city relented, and they did that and put the landscape in. And of course, a lot of people in the city thought the city did it, but we didn't do it. We didn't maintain it, didn't do anything, but everybody liked it. So about the time I went on the council in April of 1982, and one of the first things that came up to us was Oak Brook Parkway. Originally, the first section of Oak Brook Parkway, which Oak Brook maintains, was done by the developer, and he did the landscaping and all that. And in the next section that we put in, we went this typical project where we just put the street in, put no landscaping or nothing. And so they came to us and asked us to landscape that. And we thought it was a great place for us to test what landscaping could do to the median and the people's appearance there. So anyway, we did. And I can remember very vividly, it cost $80,000 at that time to landscape it from Beltway all the way up to Gatwick. And one of the things I think we did, which was short-sighted at that time, is we put in a classification. We had A, B, C, and D landscaping in medians, depending on how high visibility they were and all that. We put in a higher level. A's had a lot of seasonal plants and things like that in there, and later went down the road as far as there were less streets, not as visible, things like that. And I don't think that was a good program. I think we'd have been better off if the city just says, and I think landscaping is a good thing. It's proven, people like it, slows cars down, all those things. But I think if we come and say to a level, we'll do this level here. Now, if you want seasonal plants and a lot of other things, you got a homeowners association, you can do that beyond that level. But at least we're consistent in what we do with the landscaping on all of our medians so that everybody gets kind of roughly the same thing. Takes the staff out of the battle of deciding who gets what. And I think we can do that because I think a lot of those things really help our city, and we don't need to get in a battle. And quite frankly, when we did Oak Brook, I think all the council's assumption was that we were going to take over the maintenance from Webb Chapel clear to Beltway. I mean, staff understood it differently, but that was kind of our understanding. And then that little section there between Gateway and Webb Chapel, I guess, is maintained by the original homeowners. And I don't know that that was fair to do that. I think we should take that whole thing and treat it all consistently. So, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of history. You know, we made some mistakes back then. We learned a lot of things about landscaping and that. And the area level A's we did, we had a lot of seasonal plants in there. And when we went through the drying period, we had here, the droughts a few years ago, we dropped back in a lot of that landscaping, and it's a result of it. It's a lot of the A's really don't look very A's anymore. But I think that's kind of the history of where we were with a lot of that. So, and I think Mercer Crossing is a main part of our city, and I think we should take care of that out there to a certain level. Now, whether we decide it's the level of what they have, and that's up to you guys. But I think that's would bring us together as a city more if we're more consistent in the way we treat it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all to everybody for commenting. Next up is our consent agenda, and I know I have a couple of people that have signed up to speak to the consent agenda, but there is a change. Item I2 is going to be discussed in executive session. So I will ask if either of the speakers who signed up to speak on I-2. If they would like to come up and speak now, they can. Then we will call for approval of the consent agenda. So first up would be Jan Burke. You can speak or you can wait.
I'm sorry, if I wait, I can make my comments, or is it too late to vote?
Well, the item will be discussed in executive session, so that will not be open to the public.
Okay, is there a vote in the executive session?
After. Yeah.
And so
After.
I can make a comment then, or should I'll do it now if I thought about something.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council people. My name is Jan Burke. I live at 3530 Pinehurst Circle in Farmers Branch. I'm coming to you today because of the resolution that we read over the weekend that you now say is going into an executive session. A couple of things. A couple of friends have approached me as to concerns with the language and the intent of the resolution. I also have had a friend and a neighbor call their city council representative. They're understanding that this resolution will not apply to citizens. It only applies, from this person's understanding, to contractors, developers, people of that sort. If my friend and neighbor's understanding is correct, then I would suggest adding language to the resolution to say it excludes citizens from being applicable to this resolution. Where they're coming from is, a lot of us know many of you. We may say complimentary things, we may make complaints, we may say something is not the way we want it. If someone wants to make a formal complaint, I think it should be like in the state. I could call my state rep, I could call my state senator, I could call a Republican state rep, another state Republican senator, a Democrat rep, a Democrat senator. I could call anybody that's involved in the decision on the committee. I could call the governor. They just want that freedom, and they're concerned that they're going to be restricted as to who they can call and who they can feel comfortable to talk to. They just want to be sure that they have that open communication. I hope that makes sense. If not, talk to me later. If it does apply to the citizens, please make that clear when you come back, because then, I don't know, I'll just have to go from there and go back to my friends. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And next up is Candace Adams again.
Now y'all know why I sit up front. Candace Adams, 3521 Pebble Beach Drive. And I'm concerned about this resolution because I have had issues with some council members that have been unresponsive. And I also know that there have been times when I have more familiar, more at ease, and felt like my comments and concerns were taken to heart and not just scooted under the rug and nothing was heard or done about it. I mean, again, if this applies to citizens, I mean, what happens if a citizen, let's say, sees a council person, other than the one they have in their district, at a city event? Because y'all go, you represent the city. Are you only representing your district, or are you representing all of the residents of the city? If I talk to someone, say the mayor, at an event, Joya Park, a celebration, the grocery store, whatever, is that person, the mayor or anyone else on the council, supposed to say to me, I'm sorry, I can't speak to you about this issue because you need to approach your district person and speak to them? And even if you haven't had a good response from that person, what is your next level of escalation? I mean, we're all in the city together. We should all be harmonious together. And I just don't want there to be more division with our city people. I believe that some of these council members that in the past and now have been very forthcoming and very open to having an open door policy and calling and talking and speaking. Others have not. So please take that into consideration if you are saying that citizens are applicable to this resolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, there will be a discussion of item I2 during executive session, which will follow this meeting. And then when we come out of executive session, we will announce the outcome of that. So in the meantime, we have one item on consent agenda, which is item I1. And I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Mayor, I'll second the motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Very good, thank you. Motion and second. If you would, please indicate your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up is our public hearing. Item J1, conduct a public hearing and consider adopting ordinance number 3850 for a zoning amendment for industrial development on approximately 20.8 acres located at 11,800 Ford Road within the Planned Development District number 74 zoning district and take appropriate action.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sarah Bergman, lead planner. This site is located along Ford Road, north of LBJ Freeway and south of Christian Parkway. The property is developed with 4 office buildings and a surface parking lot, and the southern portion is currently vacant. The applicant is proposing a new industrial warehouse development for this site, which is not permitted under the current Planned Development PD 74 zoning. PD 74 allows for some industrial uses north of Christian Parkway with approval of a specific use permit or SUP, but south of Christian Parkway, those uses are currently prohibited. So as a result, the applicant is proposing an amendment to add warehouse, distribution, and light assembly as allowed uses, and to add light fabrication as an option by SUP. This is the proposed site layout. 3 total buildings are proposed with a combined area of 393,000 square feet. You can see that multiple driveway entrances are proposed along each frontage, and the applicant is also proposing to install sidewalks along the perimeter of the site. The PD 74 landscaping and parking requirements are met or exceeded by this proposal. This is the elevation view of the proposed warehouse buildings, and you can see that attention to detail has been given for the primary facades of the building. The applicant is providing a variation of building materials, colors, and depths, canopies, enhanced lighting, and glazing along the front of the buildings. And I do want to call attention to where the loading docks for these warehouses would be located. So you can see with buildings A and B, these areas face internal, with the loading doors screened from view here with 2 screen walls, as well as to the north. On building C, the loading doors do face public right-of-way for Ford Road, and so as a result, the applicant is proposing a 10-foot screening wall along this frontage with some decorative LED lighting, and you can see that in the photo here. There are a few other deviations from the PD 74 requirements that are being requested with this proposal. Those are outlined in your staff report, and they include setbacks for parking, the building adjacency to residential zoning for Dallas Christian College, and removal of some existing trees. Again, here's an elevation view, and you can see the enhanced facade along the primary frontages, and then the bay dock doors along the rear of the building. And the Farmers Branch 2045 Comprehensive Plan does designate the site as regional commercial, and that land use calls for commercial, large-scale commercial, office, shopping center, and retail developments. And given the industrial nature of this development, it is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. Public notice letters were mailed to all surrounding property owners, and before this agenda packet was posted, 2 letters were received. Those are both included with your packet. After the agenda was posted, we received 3 more letters. One was an opposition letter from a neighboring property owner. One was a support letter from the owner of the subject site. And one was a formal support letter from Dallas Christian College in addition to the letter that was included in your packet. And finally, on February 26th, the P&Z recommended approval of this request with a few modifications that are outlined here. And those are limited hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, an SUP requirement for light fabrication uses, and 10-foot masonry screening wall with landscaping along the property boundaries shared with Dallas Christian College. The applicant has incorporated all of these requests into their proposal, which is before you tonight. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here as well and would like to address the council.
Thank you, sir. You want to bring him up?
Sure.
Good evening. Kyle McCullough, 5G Studios, 1217 Main Street, Suite 500. Mayor, council, Sarah, thank you for such a, this has been a fun journey with the city of Farmers Branch. We've worked on this in September. We've worked with the staff, and I really thank her for all her time and the efforts that we've placed on this project. We've had a lot of the considerations during the design of the project. We have met with Dallas Christian College, and we had their approval, and we negotiated the 10-foot screening wall. I'm here to answer your questions at this time. We've had a good venue with the planning and zoning and event, and we've answered all their questions, and I'm here to do the same thing, and I appreciate this very much.
Council, does anybody have any questions? Councilman Roman?
Sorry. So when I looked at this in the map, I noticed that we use this area for parking for events. So just as a forethought, maybe if this project does move forward, that's something to consider for our large-scale events where that is the overflow parking. But that's it.
Yes, staff is aware of that, and that's on our radar to make sure we discuss.
Okay. Councilman Merrick?
Yes, if I may direct this to Sarah. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
So help me understand, I'm sat on planning and zoning for a number of years, actually watched the meeting in preparation for tonight's meeting. So I saw the long dialogue, and I give kudos to the applicant for working as diligently as they did to address the concerns of the Planning and Zoning Commission. But help me understand why this didn't fit PD 74 as it's zoned currently, and then we'll get into the definition of what large commercial footprints and retail look like. So that's two questions there
Sure.
for me.
To start with your first question related to PD 74, the current zoning calls for office and retail type uses, and there's actually a kind of a transition built into the PD where it envisions taller, higher intensity uses closer to the frontage to take advantage of that visibility and access, mid-rise development in the interior of the site, and then lower height and intensity development to the north, closer to where you start to see single family.
Okay. So let me ask, when was PD 74 crafted?
Ooh, I believe in the 90s. I can get you the exact dates.
I know it was last revised in 1997.
Yes, that sounds
And
right.
I believe the prior revision, if I saw the numbers correctly, was 1996. So we're looking at, close to 30 years since that was crafted.
Yes.
And so I know that we put together the comprehensive plan for 2045 looking forward. And I'd also point out that this particular track is at the periphery of our zoning, because at west across Ford Road is actually Dallas, the city of Dallas, correct?
Correct.
All right. So I think usage from 1997 and projections from 1997, while good then, have probably changed.
That would be a correct assumption, yes.
Thank you for that confirmation. I feel much better. So I do want to talk about setbacks, because I know there was a setback that had to deal with residential in this as well. But I also want to point out that the Dallas Christian College is zoned in residential. And I also want to point out that the applicant made good faith in working with Dallas Christian College to come to an agreement now that Dallas Christian College is actually in support of this particular agreement. So while setback was an issue, it wasn't meeting setback, I think the applicant working with the neighborhood, and that's what we like to see, the applicants, developments, working with our neighbors to make good decisions and collaborating. So I want to point that out. Let's see. Can we go back to the slide where we talk about the definition? Correct here. So the comprehensive plan recommends commercial area at a scale compatible and visible from the regional thoroughfare and highway. How high does 635 actually land at that particular? It's not at grade. We all know that. There are multiple levels. So this idea that it would fit back in 1997, 1996, the roadway has changed since then. So I think we have to adjust that particular comment and as well. But I really want to get into a large footprint commercial development. This looks like a large footprint commercial development to me. Shopping center, it's not. The definition of a shopping center doesn't fit. But high-intensity retail office and services use. If I understood correctly with their flex hybrid model, they're actually doing some service uses, if you will, my definition, I'm not the planner, of working with businesses and contractors, homeowners, in order to facilitate retail sales at a level inside their operation. Would that be a correct summation?
That's my understanding, and I might let the developer speak a little more to their business model, but the uses that are being added are those warehouse, distribution, and light fabrication and assembly. And so those definitions might differ a little bit from the type of development that's envisioned by
Correct.
the applicant.
But I'll give the Planning and Zoning Commission, again, some recognition of addressing the special use permit for those, which adds a little bit of extra scrutiny on any future development or utilization going forward. So I think that's a great limiting aspect that we actually as a city get to maintain and control going forward.
Absolutely.
So at this point, I don't think I have any other questions. I'll leave myself open. I do want to also commend the third point on this particular slide with P&Z, where the 10-foot masonry screening wall along the Dallas Christian College boundary, where they worked in putting up that screening and making sure that they have clear separation, which appears to be a lot of the agreement that the college and the applicant have come to. So they're trying to be good neighbors, as I've already stated. So thank you, Sarah, for fielding those questions.
Sure.
I'll turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sarah. I have a couple of questions. One I think is going to be better answered by the applicant. Was there a study done, or what can you tell us about the demand for this type of warehouse property in this area?
Absolutely, Mr. Jackson. We did do several studies, and that's the flex hybrid. These facilities are the top tier of the leasing demand. These are upticks for type of countertop businesses. Matter of fact, we have one of them that's already been contacted. They've actually contacted me several times. It is the area that's also going across the street and also in the Dallas Trade Center. This area is turning into this location. We do have countertops on the other side of 35 that's being developed. It is tenant-driven. We try to speculate at least between 3 to 5 years of what the market is demand for. This market that we've designed these buildings for flexibility, for future flexibilities, will last a lifetime of projected over 30 years easily, especially the modules and opportunities of giving for the smaller type of tenants that offer retail type of product for the clients to come there and have this setting of this flex hybrid type of buildings. I hope I answered your question, sir.
You did. So, and it raises an interesting observation. That LBJ 35 area around there seems to be in, growing population of tile stores, countertops. We bought our countertops from pretty close by.
I'm
from
sorry.
that area. We've got a couple of those kind of businesses in Farmers Branch,
Right.
on the west side of 35. And so you see that area continuing that trend and growing, attracting businesses that cater to home remodeling type consumer products?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we spent the time through the design process to make this a flex hybrid type of buildings and to bring that type of quality, to bring that type of rent, to afford to do this facility and compete. Remember, we're competing against other buildings. We have to have our best foot forward. And we do see this area growing, and the LBJ is 38 feet on ground. It's 38 feet high. So we did dress with Sarah. We made a couple of design and improved there, especially next to the hotel. We've been good neighbors.
So help me envision that height difference, because that was another question I had. LBJ is 38 feet high.
Approximately.
And the buildings are how high?
The buildings are close to that height. They're between about 43 feet, and the height, the ones in the back, the one here in the front is probably closer to 40 feet.
So as I drive down LBJ, assuming I'm not taking the express overpass, I'm going to see the top portion of that building from the highway.
Yes and no. You're just like this example here. We've embellished on that corner per staff's recommendations.
Yeah, it's a very nice
Thank you.
looking warehouse compared to what.
Well, we call it flex hybrid. It's
Flex
a little bit
hybrid.
restricted. Yes.
Fine. There's a lot of these, even if you go west on 635, go into Irving, Coppell, over in those areas, there's a number of these kinds of properties along, I want to say, Beltline.
I did quite a few of these
You did?
buildings. I did.
Understood, okay.
Yes.
All right, very good. Last question, and maybe, Sarah, I don't know if you'd answer this question. If we could go back to the map and help council and residents understand the traffic flow of semi-trucks and trailers. That's, and I'm sorry, I will have one more question for you in just a moment, as long as I can remember it. I want to understand that traffic pattern of the 18-wheelers. What are we doing to keep them off of Farmers Branch Lane? Because that'd be a big no-no with this if it moved forward.
Absolutely. And the applicant did provide a traffic generation analysis that shows overall number of trips to the site, meaning passenger vehicles would decrease with this development, but the number of large vehicle, heavier truck trips would increase, of course. And currently, there are signs posted on Villa Creek and at Christian Parkway indicating that no through traffic of trucks is permitted towards Farmers Branch Lane. So if trucks are accessing the site via 635 and then coming up Ford Road, they would need to visit the site and then return to 635. Truck traffic could not continue north towards Farmers Branch Lane.
Okay, so they can't go west on Villa Creek Road to Denton Drive and make a right or a left? And I know that's Dallas property, but
Right.
still provide sort of a cut through.
That I'm not certain of. The signs are posted specifically for Farmers Branch Lane and Ford Road.
Right.
But I can't speak to the traffic impact in Dallas. I'm not sure if the engineer would like to comment,
Yeah.
but.
Is there some other creative idea because about addressing the truck traffic? Because my particular street has 3 no truck signs on it. And there's not almost a day that goes by we don't have dump trucks and sometimes, rarely, but sometimes larger trucks still travel on my residential street. This being not a residential street, more conducive to large vehicles. Is there something else that's more creative to keep the trucks out of the neighborhoods and on the paths that are designed for them?
Sure, that's a great question. I think the advantage is that the signs are already posted and it's already prohibited for trucks to travel north. I know, it becomes an enforcement issue at that point with our police department. I do think the applicant wanted to comment on the design of their site and their intention for traffic flow. So I may let them speak a little bit to that.
Okay.
Sir, I appreciate it. Can you pull up the site plan? Can you embellish this area right here a little bit? Right.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's perfect. I can read it. That's a great question. We did think about this, and most or all 18-wheelers we have coming into this shared service court between A and B. We do have if you noticed, maybe I can get the cursor. This is a right in, and then this would be going to the south on Ford Road. As a cousin in our family is in the trucking business, the GPS systems are designed for the fastest efficiency for the trucks. That efficiency is LBJ. Getting them in and out, going down Ford Road on the north end is something that would not be programmed with those trucks. The signs, these are professional drivers. They're aware. That's the last thing that they need. We did coordinate this very diligently to make sure that we meet with this median cut and have a large enough driveway to accommodate this area. I'm not saying everything is perfect, but we have done a bunch of these facilities that are next to residential neighborhoods, and we've had success in this in the past.
So that's insight that I was looking for. So in
Yes.
addition to signs, there is road design, the entry and exit
Absolutely.
to the property. GPS is set up to find most efficient route, and that is toward LBJ.
That
not
is-
toward Farmers Branch Lane.
Right.
Okay, those are a couple of the.
Those are
insights.
GPSs that you and I don't have. It's the GPSs that are for large service trucks. That is what those are designed for.
Okay.
And that's what is in the business.
Okay.
Trust me, I've heard an earful from my cousin.
I'm sure. So Ford Road, does that belong to Farmers Branch, or is that Dallas, or do we share that road, the maintenance of that road, the upkeep?
Sure. It's a little hard to see, but this black line on the aerial image is the city limit line. So the majority of Ford Road from this point south is City of Dallas maintenance, and from that point north is Farmers Branch maintenance.
I know that there's a chemical plant there now, been there for a very long time. There's another office, industrial type structure at the corner of Christian and Ford. So that's probably commanded some large vehicle, perhaps 18-wheeler traffic. This would be a substantial amount more of that kind of traffic. We know that, I don't remember the stat, but one 18-wheeler is equivalent to like 44 cars type of traffic wear and tear on roads. How are we going to deal with the Dallas side if that road gets all torn up, or our side if it gets torn up? Is it built to handle these 18-wheelers?
As far as maintenance on the Dallas side, the city Farmers Branch doesn't have a ton of control, and knowing that the primary entrance to that site will be around this area, probably most of the impact to Ford Road will be on the Dallas side. I might ask Public Works to comment on the condition of the road and maintenance.
Even though that road belongs to Dallas, it's an entry point to our city, and particularly an entry point to one of our city's most favorite attractions, and that's the historical park. And so,
Yes, sir.
as we continue to have events and we bring visitors in, if that road is, if it looks like a battlefield, because the 18-wheelers have torn it up and Dallas hasn't, taken care of it.
It's a legitimate concern. Shane Davis, Deputy Director of Public Works. It's my understanding it's an asphalt overlay, so you have concrete underneath and asphalt on top. If it was totally asphalt, it'd be one heck of a concern, but that is not the road construction there, to the best of my knowledge. I don't know that we really would do an ILA with Dallas over that, but we're just going to have to have a really good working relationship in terms of that road. So I understand your concern.
So we do have a good work.
So we'll need to work and make sure we do, just with their
Right.
Public Works Department in terms of road maintenance. Actually, I think they call themselves mobility now instead of Public Works, but anyway.
Yeah, that's my concern
Right.
is that we get ahead of that. If this project were to go through, because last time I went down the road, I wasn't paying that much attention, but
I go
it
through it
wasn't
nightly.
new.
Yeah, you're correct. I go through it on a nightly basis, trying to get underneath the
Yeah.
wraparound on 635 to get home.
So it may not take long, even with the construction traffic and building a facility like this, might do some damage to the road that's going to.
No, it's definitely worth us making them aware of what's coming in there, that prepare for a different level of maintenance coming forward. So that's certainly a communication we can have with the city of Dallas.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Last question, and I promise this one is for the applicant. You currently own the buildings that are there now? Or
That is you're talking about the office buildings?
Correct.
No, that is not correct.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just the architect.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I'd like to, but
Well, my question's around, I know that they've been there for a very long time.
Yes.
We know that city buildings, the older they are, the more expensive they are to maintain, and I'm imagining that these office buildings are no different. And so, other than warehouses, which that's not perhaps maybe the right term to use, what other options were there for this area?
the flex hybrid.
Understand.
It's funny. My family, we've been in the architecture business in our family. My dad did a lot of the development here. He was in the early 70s. I actually remember driving to this. I believe it was 1983, 84, and we were driving out to these buildings just to see if parking, and I believe it was an insurance company. As a matter of fact, I was aware of most of these, and I remember specifically driving out here. And this product that we've done with, especially with this flex hybrid, it is a long-term good value for the city of Farmers Branch. These buildings that we've done even back in the late 70s, early 80s, they're all up, they're all fresh, they're all leased. And that's something that's hard to say. It does not happen with retail, and it does not happen with office, and everything has its own cycle. And to be fair, post-COVID, a lot of things have changed.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Councilwoman.
No, they asked all the questions I was going to ask. So thank you, gentlemen.
They stole all their thunder. I do have a question. Mr. McCollum?
Yes.
Did you bring the video that you showed me?
I actually did, and she told me,
It might be helpful for folks to see it.
Okay.
IT first, sorry. We don't, network integrity is something.
He should have read it teed up to begin with.
No, we weren't aware of it.
No, I know, but.
Can you not do that?
The network, we can't until we've scanned it.
Can't do it?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a no at this, that's, okay, that's not going to work at this time.
Okay.
All righty. This is a public hearing. I do have two folks that have signed up to speak to this issue. And after that, then I will circle back to council one more time. So the first up is Candace Adams.
Candace Adams, 3521 Pebble Beach Drive. And the questions that I have are, who owns the buildings? I think someone, who owns the buildings that this is, we're considering? Boxer. Okay. And it is going to be classified as Class A, Class B, Class C, what?
Definitely Class B.
I just, you know.
Ma'am, you need to address the council with your
Okay,
comments.
I apologize, thank
And
you
that's
so
right.
much.
And then we'll get answers to your questions.
Okie dokie. So the class was what I was concerned about. I wanted to make sure the businesses that were being in there were not going to be detrimental to the city and create more issues with homeless and other types of issues if they were, you know, gentlemen's clubs, et cetera. So that was why I wanted to know. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Barbara Leedy. Name and address.
My name is Barbara Leedy. I live at 2803 Sunny Hill Lane, which is a third of a mile from this project. At the State of the City meeting, y'all talked about keeping the integrity of the central part of the city, the integrity and the character, especially for the single-family residences. We have plenty of space east of Midway, west of 35, where this kind of development exists and is prosperous. This pierces that central city envelope and pierces the intent. My house is a third of a mile. There are two more streets that are closer if you look at the map that you put up. I don't think that this kind of development, 40 feet high, I can already see the buildings from the college, that these will add to the property values or the character of my neighborhood, which has already been impacted by the lovely pile, the anarchistic traffic on Villa Creek as it exists now, much less if we introduce semis onto it. And I just want to say that I do not think that this is the best fit. It is not in keeping with the comprehensive plan. And staff originally did not recommend this. And yet I'm getting the sense here that y'all are going to be very much in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. As I mentioned, this is a public hearing. I don't have anybody else that signed up to speak to this. So,
Mayor, I have a couple more questions for the applicant.
absolutely.
So if I may, sir, I'm going to harken back to your presentation of planning and zoning. Could you talk about the truck traffic? Because I believe during that particular presentation, you alluded to there would be box trucks and 18-wheelers. But I think we need to kind of get a sense of, and I believe you extolled on this during that presentation, about how many trucks we're talking about generally.
Generally, well, the good news is I did bring my civil engineer to the podium here. He's the one that did the analysis on the trucks.
Good evening, Michael Clark, Winkleman and Associates. Stay up there. 6750 Hillcrest Plaza, Suite 215, Dallas 75230. The analysis we did was, excuse me, was based on a conversation with Ms. Ricks in the Public Works Department to try to be conservative without being ridiculous. We realized that there's a bunch of offices there. We didn't contemplate them as being fully occupied. We tried to be realistic with our overall numbers. As far as the numbers of trucks, we've estimated on the conservative side roughly 200 trucks a day, which is 100 in and 100 out. 200 sounds like a lot, 100.
200 trips.
Trips, correct.
Correct.
So, and as far as a differentiation between box trucks versus semis, a lot of that's going to be dependent on the actual tenant, but the tenants we're looking for, we envision way more in the way of box trucks than semis.
That's the point that I want to reiterate. Again, watching the planning and zoning, I want to make sure that you guys have made that statement before. I'd like you to make sure that you make that statement again, that it is predominantly, more box truck envisioned, although you've generating 200 trips a day, understand. But I think that it was really important when we're talking about getting a sense of how many, trips there are, and the type, which vacillates between box and 18-wheeler. So thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. McCullough, another question for you. We did talk about the ownership of the existing buildings. Can you tell us roughly the plan, if you will, for those existing tenants? And I believe, if the number serves me correctly, it was 54% occupancy.
That is correct.
Of those.
Right.
And you made a statement in P&Z that those individuals that were going to be relocated, for the majority were going to land in Farmers Branch.
That is correct.
Can you explain how that magic will happen, if you will?
Great question. And it was a good question, too. With that said, in their lease, talks about the relocation, and with Boxer, that has the other buildings that are located along LBJ. With that, what it does is it vitalizes the percentage up to in the 80s, 83%, if it being exact. But this helps, this will help make the buildings along the LBJ prosperous, and it gives them more value. We're doing this all over the country, and this is something that is a good play for the city of Farmers Branch, because we do want to keep all of them in the city of Farmers Branch. And, with that said, that's a very good question. And we did touch that on the planning and zoning.
Very good. You also mentioned, and it's already been brought up here, the concern we had about event parking for Farmers Branch. I believe you also made a recommendation or a comment that you guys would accommodate Farmers Branch parking, let alone the Dallas Christian College parking for their events as well.
Absolutely.
Their sporting events and other events that they have.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much. And then you've already alluded to the potential tax impacts on two frontages, both the relocations as well as your projects. Mayor, I have no other questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for you. Thank you again.
Any further questions?
It's for you. So if we stayed with the current zoning, how high would the buildings be allowed to, or be required to be for that?
There's no minimum height requirement. There is a setback requirement built into the PD, and that's one of those variances that is being requested for this development, but essentially along that shared property line with Dallas Christian College, once you exceed 28 feet in height, the building has to be set back 3 feet for every 1 foot above 28. So that kind of provides some limitation on height.
Okay, so how does that limitation affect the current group that is there that is clearly more than that?
Sure. The buildings were constructed in the 70s and the zoning was put in place in the 90s, so they existed prior to this code.
So we're basically lowering it
The height,
of what's there.
functionally for that site, because of that setback requirement, I can check right now and see if there's actually a maximum, but based on how far you'd have to be set back to go much above 28 feet, you'd be pretty limited.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain motion to close public hearing and take action.
Mayor, I'll motion to close the public hearing.
A motion to close the public hearing
Second the motion.
and a second.
Did you want to include any action on the item or just close the public hearing?
Okay, we come back. So right now, we'll just vote on closing the public hearing first. All in favor of closing the public hearing? That's just the public hearing. Just. Okay, thank you. Public hearing is closed. So, is there any further discussion regarding this item? Or somebody like to make a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a comment. I will say that when I first saw the plans and application and understood the proposal, initially was not in favor. That area is a front door to our city, albeit it seems to sort of sit low. It's kind of hidden by 635 and sort of behind the Sam Moon and the hotel, and it's in a rather industrial-like area. It's a front door to our city. And in concept, a warehouse at our front door to our city doesn't, I don't favor that idea. But the more I look at the plan and consider the viability of this type of proposal, the fact that the current buildings there they're expensive to maintain, they're difficult to lease, they're not, you said they're leased at 50% currently. I don't know real estate, but I can't imagine that that's going to get much better as the building gets much older and more expensive to maintain. That is right at our border with Dallas, and so the location and the traffic pattern, as long as all of the drivers, comply with their GPS and instructions and signs and everything, seems somewhat ideal and not interfere with residential neighborhood or with our gym, the historical park, a little further down the street. So I become more in favor of it. This flex hybrid business model, although I didn't know what it was called, I've seen a lot of it. And I've seen it, it's at Coppell's front door, as you have mentioned you've been involved with. And so I just wanted my thoughts to be out there because I do intend to support the proposal, although initially I wasn't supportive. I just felt like residents deserve to know where I stand with that. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman.
I'm going to echo what Councilman Jackson said, but in asking questions and kind of doing my due diligence on this, what can and will go in there is very limited. And so to maintain a property that he, a Class A that he's bringing to us and being kind enough to really, for our front door, accommodate what has been asked by staff. So it is nicer. I think it is the best of both worlds at this moment of where we're at, because things did change post-COVID, and that building is just, it's not viable as it stands.
Okay. Anybody else? This item is marked for action, so I will entertain motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 3850 as presented.
Mayor, I'll second the motion.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Thank you.
Mayor, may I ask a question regarding that? That includes the stipulations from planning and zoning that the hours be limited to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., the SUP it will be required for light fabrication, and the 10-foot masonry wall with landscaping be installed along the shared property line with Dallas Christian College. Is that correct?
Yes, and we've written those conditions into the ordinance already.
Thank you very much for the clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. So if you would, please indicate your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next up is item K1. Consider approving Resolution 2024-044, adopting the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023, as submitted by Forvis LLP, and take appropriate action.
Mayor and Council, Tammy Zimmerman, Director of Finance. Proud to present tonight the unmodified audit opinion for the City of Farmers Branch Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. And here tonight is our auditors, which will kind of explain what an unmodified opinion is. In general terms, it's a clean audit. And again, I'd like to commend our Finance Department for their very hard work that resulted in the highest assurance that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with GAAP. And GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles. And we also have an unmodified opinion, audit opinion, on the compliance for the major federal awards, our grants. I do want to quickly mention that the draft that went out in the council packets, we do have a finalized version, and the only changes were made to formatting. There were a few number changes in the unaudited sections of the management discussion and analysis, and then the very back tables. So tonight's hopeful approval of the audit will submit the final ACFR, our Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, to all the appropriate authorities, and we will print and bind like last year and give to council the ACFR. Our auditing firm Forvis started their field work this past fall, worked along with us for several months, and here tonight to present their findings is Lauren Berry, who's been with, Forvis for 10 years, and Tyler Hoffman, who was in the trenches with us, conducting the field work and doing the report generation. So I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you. We will do our best to keep it to 3 minutes. Just kidding. So as she mentioned, I am Lauren Berry. I am your engagement executive and a director at Forvis. I've been with the firm for 10 years, and ever since I started, I've focused on the public sector. This is what I do year-round. It's what Tyler does year-round. It's what our sole focus is. We are very passionate about what we do, so sometimes we kind of talk a little crazy, so just reel us in if we start talking about things that you're unsure about. Like I said, this is what we do full-time. Please don't ask us any tax questions. We do not know the answer. So we will get started.
Lauren,
So I know
lift
it
up-
has
lift
questions
up
at
your
the end,
microphone.
but if you have any questions, oh, sorry. It says questions at the end, but if you have any questions throughout, feel free to stop us. We're happy to chat.
There you go.
Any questions as we go throughout the presentation. So before we get started, I do want to thank the finance team. Y'all should be very, very proud. That GFOA award that was presented earlier for 34 consecutive years, that is a very big deal. I audit lots of municipalities and in DFW and also outside of DFW, and not everyone gets that award. And so y'all should be very proud of your finance team and to get that award for 34 consecutive years. We also want to thank Tammy, Perla, Pam, all sitting over there. I know you see, I don't know if you're a paper person, but I of course, printed this this document, but I know you see this beautiful document, but a lot of hard work does go into it, and they work really hard on it, and they make our job easy because they work so hard on it. So I do want to thank them for their cooperation and the great job that they do for your finance department. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tyler.
Perfect. So as was mentioned earlier, the city got issued 3 opinions, not just for their annual financial statements, but also for their compliance with the federal funding that the city receives during the year. All 3 opinions got an unmodified or clean opinion. So if you think about it, right, if the city got a report card at the end of the audit, they got an A+. So y'all should be very happy about that, that all 3 opinions were a clean, unmodified opinion. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about was just some of the aspects of y'all's policies and practices. So at the very beginning of the footnotes to y'all's annual financial statements is the city's significant accounting policy. So these are essentially is a summary of how the city does business and how they account for those things. So items related to the useful life of the various assets within the city, how they account for their investments and things like that. For this year, the city did implement 2 standards that GASB put out. The first one is GASB 94, public-private and public-public partnerships and availability payment arrangements, and then GASB 96. So if you were at our presentation last year, you know that we implemented the leases standard. This is essentially just the IT version of that. All of the software and licensing agreements that the city has custody of were evaluated under these standards to determine whether or not they fell within the parameters of this standard. So, excuse me, GASB is the standard setting body that all municipalities are required to follow. So they, issued these 2 standards for FY23, the year that we audited, and the city did implement both of those standards because they were impacted by it. Specifically for the city, GASB 94 impacted the hockey center the hockey rink that the city has. So this was previously under the leases standard, but based on how the standard read this year, it fell within the scope of this because that hockey rink is providing a public service for the citizens of Farmers Branch. Unusual policies or methods, there wasn't anything unusual or anything that we had to report, no unusual alternative accounting treatments. And then some of the big items that get talked about is management's judgment and accounting estimates. So allowances for their accounts receivable for customers, property taxes, things like that. The city's involvement in the other post-employment benefit plans, as well as their participation in the state-sponsored pension plan, as well as for leases, and then GASB 94 and 96, key items related to that for the rates used, what term they decided to go with, if there were any options to extend, as well as how those payments were discounted. So the financial statement disclosures, if someone were to pick up an ACFR, this would be the big areas that I would point them to look at to really understand how the city does its business. So commitments and contingent liabilities, the city's OPEB liability, their net pension liability, the tax abatements, leases, and then these 2 new standards with what we call the P3s and the SEBITAs. And then the next thing that there were our judgments about the quality of the city's accounting principles. We didn't have anything to report there, nothing unusual that needed to be reported. So the next one is audit adjustments identified by audit. These are both proposed adjustments as well as recorded adjustments. So in any audit, we may come across something and we bring it to management's attention and ask them, whether or not they choose to record this or not. Management determines based on the city whether or not it's material enough to record or not. So we did have few adjustments related to that were recorded in the GL for fund balance rolling. And then we are outsourced to help the city with their year-end entries for compliance with the pension and OPEB standards, as well as reporting entries that needed to be done to generate the ACFR. And then just one adjustment that was identified that management decided not to post because, and we agreed with them that it wasn't material enough to need to be recorded. And then other issues that we discussed with management was the implementation of these two standards. So before we started field work, we had meetings with them to discuss kind of the process that they've gone through to make sure that they're ready for this standard, to make sure that they've identified everything that we need to audit and determine whether or not it needs to come on. And with that, I will turn it over to Lauren.
So if you can't tell, Tyler does all the work and I take all the credit. So with that, I guess do y'all have any, we'll kind of hit the future pronouncements. So I feel like every year we get up here and we talk about there's a new standard that has to be implemented. And so next year is really nice because there is a small break from new standards that are required to be implemented. But they've kept right on rolling after that. I feel like everyone jokes that they were going to get up into the 100s, and now they're up into the 100s for their standards. And so there will be two that are effective in fiscal year 2025, compensated absences, and then certain risk disclosures. These shouldn't have a material impact on the city, but we did just want to bring them to your attention. With that, we are happy to answer any questions that y'all have.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, council, anybody have any questions? Councilman Roman? Councilman Baird? Councilwoman? Councilman Merritt? Go ahead.
I thank you guys for all the work that you've done, and obviously Tammy and your team, all the work that you guys have, collaborated. It's been highlighted here. I think you made a very good statement, Tyler, about if we were getting a report card, our report card would be, at the highest levels. And I think that's important for everyone to understand. And Lauren, you made a reference about how the sequence of 34 years, it's an opportunity to meld all that together. So I'm really happy for our team and our city in the way we're doing these. I will admit that I read 145 pages of material as we went through this, but I look forward to the printed document, and I always enjoy seeing my picture on the front, right? So, no, not really. I don't turn sideways enough, apparently, for photogenic purposes. But I do think we are doing the right things the right way, and I appreciate your presentation this evening and putting us in the best light as our team has put us there as well. So thank you.
Thank y'all.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Lauren, Tyler. Thank you for your thorough work in support of our city. My comments really are more for Tammy and her team. And I just want to say again, kudos to your leadership and to your team's hard work. 34 and 26 consecutive years of receiving, those reporting awards. Not only, you've been here a year?
It'll be almost two.
Almost 2 years, right? Okay. So, in a very short time, you've come in and earned the trust of your staff and performed and led at optimum levels under the pressure of the 25 and 36 consecutive years, or the 24 and, those consecutive years of tradition of reporting excellence here. And so I just really wanted to highlight and emphasize how much we appreciate you and all the work that you and your team do. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you all. I guess I must have done a pretty good job because I was interviewed for this, and since there's no points there, I guess I passed with flying colors. So thank y'all for the work that you did.
Yep. Thank y'all. We appreciate the opportunity to serve y'all.
Okay.
We do need you to vote on it, though.
Oh, that's right.
So Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2024-044 as presented.
Mayor, I'll be happy to second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. If you would, please indicate your vote accordingly. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And that concludes our regular City Council meeting. As I mentioned earlier, we did not finish our study session that began this afternoon at 3, so we are going to resume that now, right here, with item A6, and I'm going to let Councilwoman Bennett lead off because I think I cut her off when we were trying to get short on, when we were getting short on time upstairs. So we were having discussion regarding the neighborhood revitalization programs and providing feedback of staff. This is A6 on your agenda. Let me get to that.
So I had recommended on the neighborhood revitalization program upstairs, I think we were all in agreement to change, for the demo rebuild, to change the years, the property tax rebate timelines. But for the other 20 properties, 24 properties that we own, I had recommended that we list them, to test listing some of them on the MLS with deed restrictions. Somebody this evening said a neighborhood stabilization overlay.
Yeah. That was one of the speakers.
Yeah. So I'd like to know what that is.
No.
We're back in study session. So we'll have to wait till we come back out of study session.
Are you ready for me? What is an overlay district? We have an entertainment overlay district, so a neighborhood one, I guess, could be similar. We haven't done a neighborhood one, but that would apply to all the properties and whatever polygon that we draw. So I think tonight we're talking about the inventory of our 20 lots and what to do with some and maybe test some out before we get into the
deed
private sector.
restrictions.
Right, because the overlay district would be an entire area. So I can bring some metrics back of what I think a list price could be in a square footage. Those are the things we could control. And I can bring that back at the next study session or memo. How would y'all
Allison,
like
just to
that?
clarify, any property sale would come back to the council for consideration, correct, on these?
Well, first I'd have to put it on MLS
Okay.
at a price that we agree upon, because this would be new.
Okay.
Usually I determine the price, but I don't usually put a square footage attached to it. We see what comes forward. So this time we're kind of doing it in reverse, putting a square footage attached to it at the beginning. So before I do that, it'd be nice to talk about it together.
So I guess I'm not clear on the neighborhood vitalization overlayer. So you're saying that we could define an area of a neighborhood and put specific parameters on the type of homes that can be built in there? Is that?
That would be a zoning
what
situation
I
for all the
thought.
properties, and I'm not advocating for that right now at this
Understood.
time, or maybe ever.
So what is an overlay? What is a?
Well, it's a zoning situation, but what it is it's a set of parameters, like on our east side, we have an entertainment overlay district, and it dictates zoning and other metrics for a defined area. If we are trying to meet a certain goal in this neighborhood, we can talk about what the goal is, but I would say let's reverse it, talk about what goal are we trying to hit, and then we can figure out how to get there.
Okay.
For the lots, for our lots first, and then we can talk about the rest. So would you like me to bring an example of if we were to sell one lot as a test, and I throw it up on MLS and we put some parameters, what that would look like before I put it up? In a study session or
Yes.
memo? Okay,
Yes.
either one.
Quick question, if I may, Mayor. Allison, is the only deed restriction we're talking of the square footage?
Yes, sir.
Are there other deed restrictions that would be viable to apply in order to facilitate a Builders of Hope type of a response in the MLS listing?
I don't know if we can put a sales price of what the end result, so that, I'm getting a no. So square footage, we cannot do building materials because of state law and federal law, unless we do a developer agreement. If this is
Yeah, I
just
mean,
a lot sale,
There's a way to do that.
if we want to do an agreement, yeah.
But that makes it more expensive when you
Yep.
start saying what it's going to have to look like and materials.
Correct, but one of the facets of Builders of Hope that benefited this stair step, if you will, is the income of the AMI. And so I'm interested, again, understanding what other deed restrictions might be applicable. I understand amongst the rest of us, and it's been talked about, the more deed restrictions you put on, the harder it is to sell. I get that. But I want to understand kind of this philosophy, and maybe it's more directed not to you, but to my peers, of what we're trying to accomplish. If we're trying to offload our inventory, that's one thing. But if we're trying to really spur affordable housing, the missing middle, and we've already talked about the missing middle being, a product that we don't zone for at the moment.
Right.
I mean, we have very few instances of duplexes in our city's inventory. So that's where I'm trying to understand the philosophy of my peers, perhaps. And so I will remind my peers that having an inventory of the 20 lots in the targeted area is our only leverage. And I said that upstairs, and I'll say it again. So I'd want us to make sure that we use our asset that we have to the best of our ability. So I'll leave it at that.
Councilman Jackson.
So I'll echo some of what Councilman Merritt said, but I want to add to that if we put these 3, 4, 5 lots, however many, out on MLS, and we offer those to the open market with, let's say, a restriction on square footage, and we can't really dictate materials or looks or anything like that, then we are just letting the market come in and build whatever someone wants to build, just as long as it meets the size requirements in that neighborhood. And that may or may not be better or worse than what a Builders of Hope output might be. And at least with Builders of Hope, as a council, we have some input and controls around what that product looks like. And my concern is that if we do that if we put these lots out and just let the open market buy them without some strong compelling reason for us wanting to offload 5 of the 20, that we're opening ourselves up to making that situation perhaps even worse than what it might be with Builders of Hope when we've only got 8-9 month clock before we see what a Builders of Hope product looks like.
I think I would disagree with that. That's an 8 or 9 month clock to see what they're like here. They have built in other areas if we wanted to take a field trip to see what their end products
And I have
look like.
for other areas, yeah.
And?
Oh, I had no problem with other areas. I just kind of wanted to see what the porches look like. But, I've been to West Dallas, I've been to some of their open houses that are completed, and that's why I could recommend them initially. I didn't have a problem with it then. I was just kind of wanting to see what was built here. But, it doesn't mean it's the only way to do it.
I guess I go back to asking the question is then if we've seen the success of Builders of Hope in other areas, is all that we're waiting on is to see the success of Builders Hope in our area before we decide we want to keep more lots for that type of a project?
I think that was the discussion a few months back, if I recall correctly. If I'm wrong, let me know. But we can readjust at any time.
Councilman Roman? Oh, Councilman Beard, I'm sorry.
So of the Builders of Hope lots, how much did we buy those for average, and how much did we sell them for?
I would say we bought probably each one below 200,000 because it had a home on it.
I just gave him the list you
Okay, thank you. When we bought them with a home on the lot.
Gotcha.
And at the time, several years ago, council made the determination to pivot and hold. And when we were meeting with Builders of Hope, we were determining, based on their budget for a home, what would be reasonable. We didn't want to give the land away. And at the time, the Dallas County Appraisal District value of land only in most of the 60 by 120 lots was $45,000 for land only. That land now, I believe, is either 90 or 100,000. Could even be more. So there's certainly been an adjustment on DCAD's efforts in the past few years in the area. But at the time, so each of the lot sales was the DCAD land value at that time. So we could look at the specific lot, and we could say, this is right now the DCAD land value, and it could be a healthy number and whatnot. For the completed house, something to know for Builders of Hope, after they get through a buyer and that person closes on one of the first 5 homes that, the lots we just sold that become a home, once they get a buyer and they close, they are going to record that sale on MLS. So then it will become a recorded comp when you go to hit recently sold on Realtor.com and you look in an area, they will have the new construction at 1,600 square feet or whatever those individual lots are, just the first 5. So it'll be a recorded comp of the new construction in the area of 330,000 or, so that kind of dictates something, so it's just food for thought.
But it looks like we will be spending about $450,000 to $500,000 from what we purchased and then what we sold them for. I was just trying to get an idea of the expense to the city.
In the target area, there is a significant delta, and that was direction previously.
Right, okay, thanks.
So then my question becomes, if we wait, instead of just moving forward with Houses of Hope, then those last set of homes that are being sold the values are going to have been driven up.
Yes, y'all can sell at any price.
But that defeats the goal of the project.
It will adjust the budget for build-out. Right.
Can I just say something to her point? So to your point, if we sell lots on the open market to anybody, then those homes, whoever buys a lot from us is going to build a more expensive house.
Right. And
With
I
some-
was thinking specifically to Builders of Hope.
Right. So at least with Builders of Hope, we have,
Sorry, I was asking the microphone to be on.
it's on.
Mine.
Oh, at least with Builders of Hope, we have some controls in place, okay, which helps not only the city, but it also helps the community that we're trying to serve. But where I was going to go is, again, rather rush to action, would it be helpful if we had Builders of Hope come back in and make a presentation to council before we move to take action? And that way, we can go through all of the questions necessary, discuss all of this with them, maybe look at our map and the properties that we have, get the benefit of their expertise on where they think this program could go and how they envision the rest of this potentially working for our city. I'm just putting that out there for your consideration.
So Mayor, maybe the middle ground here is, we don't, in the budget process, we don't seek to buy additional lots. I feel like 20 is a pretty good number of lots for the city to have on hand at the moment. And maybe my comments were lending themselves to assuming that we would over time, sell the rest of these 20 lots to Builders of Hope. And I don't think that that's necessarily the right path either. But I do think that if we're wanting to create some control in a certain area of the city so that people don't come in and build 3,000 square foot homes in a neighborhood with 12 and 1,600 square foot homes because they're building 2 stories, that we do have that rezoning discussion and that we simply not purchase more lots. And by the time we get through that, we will have seen more progress from Builders of Hope, and we can maybe then determine how many of our 20 lots do we want to consider subjecting to open market under rezoning that lowers the potential for these, bigger homes to be built in smaller home neighborhoods versus how many lots we want to consider for Builders of Hope.
And Councilman Roman's been waiting, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Okay, so I do want to touch on a little bit of what Martin was saying earlier regarding the cost of these lots. And I think it ties a little bit into our discussion that we had upstairs regarding what the ongoing cost of maintenance is going to be for these properties. And while insignificant for 1 year, I think it's important to consider it as a whole. So let's start with, let's just use one for example. Let's pick on 2563 Wasena because that's the first one on this list. So when we bought it for $170,000. That's what the document that you provided to me. So that was money that came from the city to a resident to purchase their property. And then now the lot is empty, so that means that somebody had to pay to demo and clean everything up, right? So that would have been the city paying for that.
Oh, right.
Right.
We would be
So-
owner.
So there would have been some costs associated to that, and do you know what the cost is for that approximately?
A typical demo of a house under 2,000 square feet is several $1,000s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe like 175 would be a good estimate, or
Yeah,
$5,000?
Plus closing cost and all that, yeah, 180.
Okay, so about 180, and then we talked about the maintenance being $35 a week.
But just for one lot?
For one lot,
Yes, just for
so-
one lot during mow season. Because it doesn't have a house on it, so you're cleaning up the debris and mowing.
So what do you?
So then
12
we're
weeks?
somewhere around $1,120 per year, and how long have we had these homes approximately?
Each one is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
With Cena, I don't know if I have that year on me. I could go to DCAD real quick and figure it out, but a couple of years is
Okay.
safe to say. Let's say 2, 3.
Okay, so we're at 183 or something
Oh, yeah.
down in the cost. And so
Yeah.
then let me just write that down so I don't forget. So then when we decide to go to Builders of Hope and say, here's a property that we have deemed to be one in the target area that we would like for you to purchase and build on, we sell that property to them, right? It's not giving to them for free.
Right.
It's sold. And when we sell it, in this instance, we sold it for $45,000.
Right.
So,
At that moment, the 45 was the number from DCAD for the land value. That's where we came up with that.
and so at the end of the day, we're down $138,000 for that property.
Yeah,
At least.
right.
Yeah, so.
Right.
And I think you multiply that times 5, because we have about maybe 5 properties, maybe it's different,
Oh,
right?
right.
But then if we keep doing this over and over again, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I think when I'm thinking about what's the best compromise, what's the best outcome for the situation that we're in, I think the best outcome is what Councilwoman Bennett Burton indicated earlier, which is we sell lots on MLS and indicate a deed restriction. That may not give us 100% control on something, but at least we can control the square footage, which we know is what Dallas County Appraisal District looks at when evaluating somebody's property.
Right.
And so given that that's that primary indicator, what's the best way to recoup some of that money And I think it's just putting it out in the market and figuring out what's the best price given the specific deed restriction. So that's sort of my take on that, and I think that's why I'm in favor of doing that. I'm certainly not in favor of the Neighborhood Renaissance program for all of the reasons that I've listed in previous meetings, and I think this is like the third or fourth time we've had this discussion. So, I don't want it to seem like I'm rushing anything or trying to hurry things up, but understandably, I'm a little bit impatient that we've had multiple discussions. I felt like the same council members have been on the same page for some of these discussions, at least since the last one, and yet we want to have another discussion. So that's why I'm sort of a little bit like jumping out of my chair a little bit, because I'm like, okay, the majority of the council has already spoken and given what their preference is, so we just need to have staff take that direction and move that forward. I don't know that there's any further discussion or any other way of looking at this that is going to change my opinion. Maybe other council members feel differently, but at least in my case, I feel very strongly about this. And maybe after the test of 3 properties, I think is what we ended up discussing, maybe at that point, my mind might be changed and realize, hey, that's not a really good idea. Let's figure something else out. But at least for now, I think what you guys are looking for is direction on this, which is then going to give direction on the critical business outcomes, which then in turn gives direction to our staff to start working on the budget, because all of these have budgetary implications. And I don't want to get to a point where we are rushing things or doing things last minute or not doing our due diligence because we've been so caught up talking about this one issue that started in February. That's my 15 cents.
Councilman Roman, I just wanted to clarify on how long we've had the property. We've had it for all of 2020, 21, 22, and 23. So just at 4 years, or actually a little over 4 years going into this year's how long we've had that specific property according to DCAD.
Mm-hmm. And I can give you some history of the philosophy. Outside the target area, we would buy a home, tear it down, list it on MLS, and the offer, the one that council would choose at their discretion is whatever it would be, and the square footage would be part of the contract, and it would be whatever the highest number is or however they picked it. So that was back then, and that was recovering the costs of the land and the home that was purchased in the demo. The target area philosophy was different than the rest, to not recover cost, but to make sure we put a one-story product that did not hinder the neighborhood. So we can move in whatever direction, but that's why there is a delta, which is on purpose, which is opposite of the rest of the city.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
So Councilman Roman, your example is helpful for me to put some numbers into perspective. And you just hit on a thought as well, Allison, that I didn't think cost or making money on these properties was the goal. I thought the goal was to offer homes in a neighborhood where homes were so old that they cost more to repair, rehabilitate than what the people in those homes could afford, or people looking in neighborhoods like that were willing to spend on those kinds of homes. And so this was a catalyst, if you will, to help a neighborhood, help people in a neighborhood stay in the neighborhood at an affordable price, but with a new home. Mm-hmm. But if we look at the example that Councilman Roman gave, it looks like there's about 138, let's call it even $140,000 loss. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the city's investment in providing a catalyst program to help improve a neighborhood.
Correct.
Every year DCAD puts out new values. My property values have gone up quite a bit annually. Does the land value also increase at the same rate as the improvement values?
Well, the improvement value changes when you remove a structure and put a new one up, so that changes that particular address.
Sure.
The land value on one street, if they're similar in nature, does not adjust every single year typically, and if they're all the same, then typically the value is all the same.
Okay, so a
it's
lot that DCAD says is worth $45,000 is not likely to increase in value like the home would if there were an improvement?
Yeah, when there's a new improvement, the land does not always reflect that on the street. So these were all probably 45,000 years ago. They're now either 90 or 100 for the whole street.
Okay, for the whole street.
And
So
we can pull up an example on
a
DCAD.
$45,000 lot on Wasena will
Years
likely
ago.
increase in value
When the street does.
when
And
the street does.
Mr. Smith can explain it better because he is an expert with DCAD and valuations, but I will tell you, I've been looking at this area a long time, and there are typically 60 by 120 is the width and length of the lots. And typically, the lots that are all the same on a street, when you look at the land value only, they're all programmed at the same number. The improvement value is the differentiating factor,
Okay.
except for a corner lot that's larger or something different.
Mhm.
But I feel like Pete wants to talk.
They have a 3-year reappraisal plan, so they may not reappraise every city or all that city every year. And we're a non-sales disclosure state, so we can't chase sales, so it's not like we have, sometimes we'll have MLS information, most often not. So we're always after, DCAD's always after the fact, so the values tend to be less than what actual transaction was. But typically, as an area, in fact, the city kind of set the market out here for a few years with all the redevelopment that was going on with the programs. And so as the houses are built, the raw land becomes more valuable. And they'll typically have a price per square foot for the land, depend on, in certain streets and areas. And same price per square foot on homes. I mean, you go to Highland Park, they used to complain because one side of the street was one value and across the street was a different value. So, but typically as the houses are rebuilt or constructed, the land will tend to chase upwards.
So the point that I was trying to get to is that holding the land is going to cost us roughly $1,400 a year in mowing. Right, we got to mow the grass.
Oh, yeah.
Roughly $1,400
Oh,
bucks.
Yeah.
If that lot is valued at $45,000 this year, maybe next year, in a couple of years, that value increases to $50,000 or $60,000. The increase in the value is more than what it's cost us to maintain the lot. So we're not continuing to accrue a loss. We're beginning to get some of that back and then some. So it's not, net, it's not costing us to hold that lot. So the reason for selling it, I don't find compelling I'm sorry, I'm just getting confused at I don't want to necessarily say it, why the rush, but we lose leverage with every lot we jump out and sell, and I don't know that it supports the purpose.
We could maybe split the difference and put one lot on MLS. And, I mean, I could bring some metrics back to y'all, and we could say, hey, does this make sense? This lot and this square footage, and we could test it for one. Builders of Hope is still going to put 5 in the ground. And we cannot control what the open market will sell their home for if it's a builder, if they don't stay in it. I just want to make sure I've said that unless Pete tells me otherwise.
One other thing to keep in mind, whenever we go to sell real property, we have to sell it for fair market value according to appraisal we obtain, and there are some exemptions which we use when we're doing an economic development project where we use the Farmers Branch LDC to facilitate the transfer of the property, or if it's in a TIF zone, then we can sell it in basically a private sale, whatever price we want to. So keep in mind, if we list something MLS, it's going to be, the minimum price is going to be what our appraisal is.
I think this area is in a TIF, isn't it?
Yes,
So that means we can sell it for whatever price we want.
We could.
we could. We could. In other areas, we can't, the rest of the city. Yeah. Yeah. Or the FBLGC. So we can do whatever y'all want. So let's just, so we can control the square footage and who the buyer is and the sales price of the Builders of Hope homes and the design. If we go the open market and we talk about before we do, we can control the square footage and the sales price, and the sales price can be whatever we talk about when I bring that back as a test. Does that Sound like a plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In study session or memo, or does it matter? Just for the, okay. Yes, okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course.
The house on Veronica Road,
Yes.
what's being done? What's the status of that as far
You-
as,
you mean
is it
the-
being
the
actively
lot?
marketed? Is it, it's not in the area. It's one of the outliers. It's not one of the,
Not the house, is it an empty lot, you mean?
Empty
Or
lot,
another house?
sorry, excuse
Oh, okay,
me.
okay. It's in our
right.
non-target area inventory, and it's slated to go on MLS this spring.
Okay.
Kind of right after Cloverdale sells.
Okay.
And Cloverdale is up for, I think, next week to close.
Okay.
Okay,
Do you have direction?
I think so.
Should
I will figure it
should we go
out.
around the room
Do
and
not
make
worry,
sure
I'll
that
figure
you're
it out.
clear?
Do you want to,
I
do
think
you
I
want
got
to be
it.
a little more
Clear as
confident in
mud.
that?
No, clear as mud, got it.
Okay.
Right in my head. Don't worry. I got this. I got this. Don't
All
worry.
right.
We'll figure it out. It'll be good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was a long discussion, but well worth it. So, okay, next up is item A7, City Council review, discuss, and finalize 2025 critical business outcomes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Joaria Tareen, Deputy City Manager. And I'm bringing our CBO discussion to you all. And my goal today is for all of you to review, discuss, and finalize our critical business outcomes for upcoming fiscal year. I have this slide up here, and it lists all our CBOs that we have discussed during our strategic planning session and at one of the study sessions. Our CBO 1 and 2 are presented as listed up here. CBO 3 was modified to read plan for, build, and maintain high-quality public assets and infrastructure. CBO 4 was also modified to read support the evolution of art, culture, entertainment, and recreation in Farmers Branch. CBO 5 is, thank you, Allison, for the discussion and all the information. And number 6 was also modified to include, to read, improve overall targeted community engagement and communication. It is important to note that none of these CBOs are in particular order. However, you do have authority to rank them if you would like. After our discussion today, our next step is for the department heads to take it further and work on our initiatives. And from there, we'll get into our budget alignment. This is all I have for you, and discussion.
Thank you,
Thank
Jory.
you.
Jory, can you take us back to the CBO list, please?
Okay.
Thank you. And Mayor and Council, I believe the one that has had the most conversation has been CBO 5. CBO 2 was mentioned a little bit earlier, but with Builders of Hope, I could say that we're still working on that one because we have a program that's working on different layers of housing with Builders of Hope. CBO 5 is the one that I believe staff has heard the most conversation about and would like clarification on.
I'll start.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
CBO 5 should go away.
I think CBO 5 should go away.
I would agree with that.
I'm okay with it. CBO 2 is not up for discussion, or?
No, everything is, but just the feedback we've received so
Okay.
far, it seems like there was the most discussion was about CBO 5
Yeah.
and what staff should do with that one.
I think it makes sense for CBO 5 to be removed, seeing that we're not going to actively try to acquire more properties. With CBO 2, I don't look at CBO 2 as just a Builders of Hope, targeted CBO. I look at that as looking at all layers of our housing stock in Farmers Branch. And so I'd suggest that we leave that one in. Thank you.
Councilman Merritt?
So Ben, this question's for you. Of the 132 objectives that were underneath all of these CBOs before, is there some movement of things that would come out of CBO 5 that would land in other places? Is there good fits for that? I haven't done that exercise, but
that would take a little bit of working through the crosswalk on it. But before, it would just mean is that if a property came up at a certain value, and Allison can give specifics on that one, the city staff would pursue buying it and bring it to council to authorize the sale of it. So that would basically pause those actions, which we've already, sounds like council wants us to do. There's really not any money sitting in her account or economic development to buy anything of substance at this point in time. So when the budget process comes forward, I won't be putting a large amount of funds in the economic development fund that would be related to acquiring property, where some years, I would say, council, you said you wanted to acquire property. That means I need to put money in this account. So with that happening, we would steer away from that. We would focus on maintenance in that account of the properties we have or any incentives we have, not on acquiring anything new.
Understood, but I think maybe if I could refocus my question, you answered it in the manner you did, but of the objectives that are underneath there, we have 132 that are split across all our current objectives. We'd simply reposition some of those activities and tasks in other critical business objectives that make more sense. Is that a fair way to couch that? Eliminating those that are specific to acquiring property. I want to be clear. I understand that. But there are probably other tasks that you've put underneath that. Would we land those in other? And I think I know the answer, but I'd like to make sure that we're on the same page.
If some of them fit in multiple buckets, and that's usually a good strategic goal, not all 132 fit under the CBOs. The CBOs have a limited amount of the initiatives that we'll plan there. They align to the strategy map, which is a larger alignment structure that we use. But for any CBOs that are specific to CBO 5, we would bring those forward as part of the budget. They would move away from the budget process and they would go away. Now, if they lived in multiple buckets, as long as they're not leaning into something council hasn't asked us to do, they would live in those other buckets.
Fair. All right, you've answered the question. Thank you, Ben.
So I have a question along the same lines. If 5 goes away, then what if we proposed, what if there was a proposal to, say, replace 5 with assessing the needs of all the current assets of the city, such as medians, buildings, et cetera? Would that necessarily qualify as a CBO on this list, or is that done? I know some of that's included elsewhere, but it doesn't become its own.
No, and 3 pretty much leans into that. That would be an extension of 3 in most cases. We could add more to that. If it would be with the infrastructure being added. I feel like that's what council attempted to do by adding infrastructure to CBO 3 is the way I took that.
Okay, so I'm just looking for a way to pump up. Let's exclude Mercer and Oak Brook right now, but the medians of the rest of the city, because we've had that discussion for a couple of years now. So.
I believe that would be in 3, and also part of the just discussions, how we want to allocate the budget resources. Part of parks and their new alignment based on that will help us with the median discussions as well. It would also be budgetary funds going into a bucket that could be used for that, such as the neighborhood account, which would be a good bucket to use for medians.
Okay. Anybody else? No?
Thank you.
We good? Okay. Okay. Next is item 8, receive an update from the mayor and council members regarding board liaison information from outside organizations. Councilman Rome.
So I do have an update from MetroCrest Services. Just an update on some of the numbers for fiscal year 2024, and this is going to be for the period of October 2023 to February 2024. So they've got just out of the different people that they've provided services to, and these all reflect unduplicated services. So the individuals are not counted twice for different other services that they provided. So 3,121 residents have been provided services. 2,964 were provided access to their food pantry for nutrition. 92 have been provided financial education to assist with budgeting and coaching to reduce their debt. 101 residents received workforce development services to secure a job or find a better paying position. And 60 families have been provided emergency assistance like rents and utilities, and that totals out to be about $81,205. Also, at the end of February 2024, many of you might have seen this on Facebook and on other social media platforms. At the end of February 2024, MetroCrest was proud to announce that the construction loan used to construct the new facility was paid off in full using capital campaign funds raised specific to the construction of the new home for MetroCrest services. The debt-free position allows MetroCrest to avoid a mortgage and interest expense, which in a time like this is very high, thus allowing donor donations to be directed to serving those seeking assistance. Also, the 19th annual Key Holder Breakfast will be held on April 23rd at the Carrollton Marriott. MetroCrest appreciates the support of Farmers Branch has provided in supporting that event. And then also on March the 28th, MetroCrest will provide an annual report to the community. The presentation is 8:30 to 9:30 a.m., followed by tours if requested at the MetroCrest facility. If you don't RSVP, you can feel free to email Tracy Eubanks at tubanks@metrocrestservices.org. And that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything? Anything?
I shared with Ben information that came from Dallas County Commissioner Summerman's office, where they are having an event on, I'll get it right, Thursday afternoon at 1:30 at their LBJ offices. I think we all have it on our invitations. But there will be an open house with election officials there as well. So more to come on that. And I think, as I've already mentioned, we've already been invited to that and have it on our calendars. That's the only update I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor, thank you. I have an update from the MetroCrest Chamber of Commerce. There's so much going on with this chamber, and so I would invite you to go to their website, metrocrestchamber.com, and sign up for their newsletter. Every week they come out with a whole list of events and activities for you to be involved in. Even if you're not a member of the chamber, or you're not even a small business owner or a business owner, there are events for our residents to engage with our chamber going on virtually daily. But I wanted to share, Michael Gallups, the CEO and president of MetroCrest Chamber, just last week posted his vision for 2024 for the Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to share that with the community real quick. His vision is to cultivate a dynamic and thriving community where businesses flourish, innovation abounds, and collaboration drives sustainable growth. And he's got 6 points for this year: empowering workforce and talent development, tireless advocacy for businesses, nurturing partner-city relationships, pursuit of accreditation and excellence. That one is huge. And then small business empowerment through training and driving economic growth, economic development and growth. So again, if you're not getting their newsletter, I encourage you to sign up, metrocrestchamber.com, and plug in. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah.
No updates.
No, okay. I have 3 things to report on. First is the North Texas Crime Commission. Chief McCoy and I have been regular attendees to that, and they have different speakers every month. Last month was Chad Yarbrough of SAC, Special Agent in charge of the FBI Dallas office, and gave a very interesting presentation on many of the things that have happened within his area of responsibility. This Thursday, there is our next meeting, and it will be a police chief's roundtable. And one of the good things about being a member of this organization and attending these luncheons is the fact that we get to engage and have dialogue with not only local law enforcement officials, but also state and federal officials. So Chief and I have had conversations with folks that are FBI, Secret Service, HSI, number of different organizations, and DEA, ATF, they're all there. And this is a good time for us to network and help put our city in front of our federal partners especially, because you never know when we're going to need their help. So that's something that we've enjoyed being a part of. The next report I have is the MetroCrest Hospital Authority had their monthly board meeting today to discuss the operations of Carrollton Regional Medical Center. And for those who don't know, the MetroCrest Hospital Authority was basically the owner of what is now Carrollton Regional Medical Center. They hold the note on the property, and so the medical center, which is owned by Santa Healthcare, is responsible to them for making their payments to buy the hospital. MetroCrest Hospital Authority, going back a number of years, has wanted to get out of the hospital business and basically become more of a philanthropic organization. And they have been doing this. They've awarded some grants to the City of Farmers Branch Fire Department, as well as other organizations. And so we're very fortunate to be recipient of some of the money, the funds that they've been giving away. As far as the hospital operations go, their patient counts seem to be fairly consistent. The hospital itself has become more of an outpatient facility because when I look at number of inpatient surgeries versus outpatient, everything's moving to the outpatient. So the insurance companies want to get you in and out fast. So that's been sort of interesting to look at their numbers over the last couple of years, and they've been fairly consistent. So they continue to operate along, and that's a good thing. Hopefully we can get some similar information for our hospital, Dallas Medical Center, in the future. The other thing that I want to report on is city manager and I continue to have discussions with DART, and we've had several meetings now with Nadine Lee, the CEO of DART, regarding projects to possibly come to Farmers Branch as part of our DART ownership in the system, and there's a lot going on. I'm glad that we finally have a seat at the table and have direct dialogue to be able to communicate the needs of our residents to the top levels of DART directly. And so I look for those meetings to continue. We just had our last one, I think it was 3 weeks ago, and very productive. So we're covering a lot of information with them and looking forward to continuing that on into the future. And that's all I have as it relates to that. Next up is A9, to discuss future agenda items. So we'll start to my right with Councilman Merritt.
No new items, Mayor. I do want to ask a question about one that Councilman Roman has, the solicit bids for legal representation. There didn't appear to be a desired outcome, and I think this is just one individual's ask. I'd like to make sure that we have an opportunity to discuss that. So I'd ask at your convenience that we set something up so I can understand your concerns and if that's shared by others on the council.
It is shared by others.
Is that it? Okay. Councilman Jackson?
No additional items, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman? Nope. Councilman Baird? Councilman Roman? Okay, I have none. So earlier this evening, we had citizen comment. We already had that issue on the item, or on the agenda for this evening, so it has passed, but we had one late sign up, and I will allow that person to speak. So next up for citizen comment will be Vicki Harrison. Reminder, there's a 3-minute time limit, and please refrain from any disparaging or inflammatory remarks directed at any member of a board or commission, city council, or city staff.
When do you want me to start?
Name and address.
Vicki Harrison, 3706.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Vicki Harrison, 3706 Bridget Road. That's it. May I start now?
Yeah.
Great. So I want to, as regards this resolution that you have presented, I will talk as quickly as I possibly can. We had a town hall at Brookhaven. At that town hall, the mayor called me out roundly for stating that if I talked to a city council person, they had to tell the other council person. You said that was not true. You stated it was not true once again in your February comments about decorum, supposedly, and things like that, whatever title you wanted to give it. You once again said it wasn't true. After the firehouse event for the bond, I just mentioned it to Councilman Merritt. He said if there was any such thing as that there would be an option to opt out and ask for privacy. Then, within hours, on the city website, there is this resolution. Now, I do not understand under any reason why you would also, first of all, say it's decorum. I haven't witnessed any citizens with a lack of decorum, but I have on the city council. Watch the tape from today. So I don't understand why you feel like you have to write this up. Are some of you afraid of what people will say to the other council members? It seems ludicrous. We've lived here 40 years. Never, ever has the council had this attitude toward people being able and willing to communicate with all council members. And if you assert, as you did yourself, that all council members represent everyone in the city, then this resolution seems ridiculous. And it definitely does not cover the issue of decorum particularly. It's just that you better be sure you tell people, or they're going to be staff's going to be bothered by it, any of this other stuff. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We're talking about being able to talk to people openly. And maybe you can't always communicate very well with your own council member. Maybe you feel like someone has a greater expertise in one area or another. Trying to quantify this makes absolutely no sense to me. And so I'm totally opposed to it. I wish you'd throw it out. And I'd like to know when you're going to tell the citizens that you're looking into gambling for the city.
Thank you. That concludes our regular council meeting for this evening. We will be convening into executive session in 10 minutes. So, let me read it. So, City Council may convene into closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, Section 2, for the purpose of seeking confidential legal advice from the city attorney regarding Hoya Park, and to discuss item I2, which is consider approving resolution 2024-043, establishing a city council policy for decorum and communications, and take appropriate action. And so we have no action as a result of executive session, but just to sort of quash any rumors that are floating around out there, the discussion about communication amongst council members by residents, there was never a rule or an ordinance or anything else that affected resident communication with council members. Okay, that was never the case. Don't know where that started, but anyway, moving forward, as I just mentioned, we see no reason to take action on item I2. So with that, we will be adjourned at 9:56.